Hello there, welcome back to my channel. This is where I've looked back in time and seen sets that are retired a while ago, could be a few years, could be last year, and comparing with sets that are retiring in 2025 to sort of give you an idea of whether the sets that are retiring in 2025 are going to be a good set to invest in or whether you should avoid them, because obviously if you've got a similar set and it's not doing very well from 2020 or whatever it is, then it might not be a good idea to invest in it this time, because you know, if it's a very similar set and it's not doing well, then it might be a good idea to avoid it. But on the other hand, if there's a set that's doing well from a couple of years ago or a year ago or whatever it is, then it might be an idea to invest in it this time. I'm just trying to give you some more information. Anyway, this video is going to be a few themes in one. I'm going to do one Sonic because there's only one. Obviously, because I'm looking at sets and trying to find a comparison, I could go through a whole theme and not be able to find a comparison. So I'm not doing every single set because not everything's got a comparison or even something similar, because I'm trying to get it as close as I can. I mean, I'm not making the sets, so obviously it's not going to be identical unless, like I said before, maybe like the camper van or something like that, where you got a camper van retired a couple of years ago and then you got a camper van retiring this year. So obviously it's exactly the same thing, so that will give you an idea. But some of these themes, there isn't exactly, there's something very similar. So like I say, the first one's Sonic, but there's only one. So Sonic is 76997, Tails Adventure Boat, $49.99. So the comparison to that one is 76991, which is the Workshop and Tornado plane. That retired in 2024. That was £38 to buy, but now it's worth around £47. So it's an increase of 24%. But if you go on Amazon, there's people selling it for up to £78, and they sold 1,510 sets. So now we're on to Creator. First one is 31139 Cozy House, $54.99. The comparison to that one is 5771, which is Hillside House. That retired in 2012. That was £50 to buy, but now worth around £99. So that's roughly an increase of 98%. But there's people selling it on Amazon for up to £303, and they sold 1,922 sets. Next one is 31058, the Mighty Dinosaurs, $12.99. Now with this one, the one that's retiring in 2025 is the green one. The little green one, should I say, not the big green one. So the ones that had two of the colours that retired, so there was a brown one and a blue one. So the brown one is the first comparison, which was 77940. That retired in 2022. That was £13 to buy, and now it's worth around £50. So that's an increase of roughly 290%. Now when it retired, that was given a very good investment. There's none on Amazon or Camel 3X, but they sold 306 sets. And then the other comparison is the blue one, which is 77941. That also retired in 2022. That was £13 to buy, but it's only valued about £34, which is an increase of around 165%. That was given a good investment classification instead of the other one, which was a very good investment. And that one sold 399 sets. Now that's strange, that, isn't it? That the one that was only given a good investment and has done worse sold 399 sets, whereas the one that was a very good investment and increased more money only sold 306. So yeah, I suppose you've got the supply and demand, but it's only a small amount of number difference. Anyway, next one is 31109, the Pirate Ship, $114.99. There's two comparisons here. I've got the first one is 7075, which is Redbeard's Pirate Ship. That retired in 2007. That was £50 to buy, but now it's worth around £150, which is roughly a 200% increase. If you look on Amazon, there's people selling it for up to £300, and that sold 532 sets. And the other comparison is 7880, which is the Big Pirate Ship. That retired in 2008. That was £60 to buy, but now it's worth around £440, which is an increase of 633% roughly. But there's none of those on Amazon for sale at the moment. And that's sold 181 sets. Next one is 31129, the Majestic Tiger, $44.99. First comparison is 5868, the Ferocious Creatures. It retired in 2011. It was £31 to buy, now it's valued at around £71. So that's an increase of roughly 129%. There's none on Amazon or Camel 3X for sale, and it's sold 584 sets. And the other comparison is set 31121, and doing my paperwork I forgot to put the name, so I'm going to get my wife when she's editing to put the name across the top. That one retired in 2022. That was £25 to buy, but now it's worth around £56. So that's gone up to roughly about 125%. And when that retired, that was given a very good investment classification. Now at the moment, if you go on Amazon, there's people selling it for up to £183, and they've sold 2,470 sets. Next one is 31142, the Space Roller Coaster, $94.99. I've actually got 3 of those. I'll just quickly hold it up. I just happen to have it handy by there. Yeah, so Space Roller Coaster, $94.99. The comparison for that one is 31084, the Pirate Roller Coaster. That retired in 2019. That was £70 to buy. Now it's worth around £118, which is an increase of roughly 69%. If you go on Amazon, there's people selling it for up to £277, and that sold 4,352 sets. Next set is 31153, the Modern Beach House. The comparison for that one is 60398, which is the Family House. That retired in 2023. I've actually got 2 of those as well, but it's down there somewhere. Yeah, that was £47 to buy. Now it's worth around £82, which is an increase of roughly 75%. If you go on Amazon, there's people selling it for up to £201, and that sold 1,338 sets. Next one is 31158, the Sea Animals, $24.99. Now obviously the main comparison to that one is the fish tank. That's 31122. That retired in 2022. Now it was £25 to buy, and now it's worth around £51. Now obviously that was kind of a one-off, you know, that was I don't know, obviously people like to have it on their desk or their shelf or whatever it is, so that's increased by roughly 105%. But if you go on Amazon, there's people selling it for up to £188. Like I said before in my other videos, whether you'll get £188 for the fish tank, you know, a £25 set is another thing, but maybe it will get that far. And that sold 8,828 sets. And the last one for creator is 40747, the Daffodils, $12.99. The comparison for that one is Daffodils, 40646. That retired in 2023. That was £11 to buy. Now it's roughly about £13 worth. So an increase of around 22%. But if you go on Amazon, there's people selling it for up to £44, and that sold 7,904 sets. Right, so now it's Speed Champions. There's one that's retiring in July, and then the rest of them are December. Obviously with Speed Champions as well, there is a couple of sets that were going to retire, so I haven't put them on this list, but one of them is that one. It's not retiring this year anymore, it's retiring next year as far as we know, and that's if it doesn't get extended again. And off the top of my head I can't remember the other one. There's another one. Right, so the first one, like I say, is retiring in July, is 76919, 2023 McLaren Formula 1 car, which is £20.99. Now the comparison to that one is 75892. Obviously with the Speed Champions, any of the single sets could be a comparison for it, because you know, Speed Champions are Speed Champions are Speed Champions, you know. But because it's a McLaren, it's a Formula 1, but there isn't actually another Formula 1 that's in a single pack. So this is the only Formula One one. So I've compared it with another McLaren, the McLaren Senna. Now that was retired in 2021. It was £13 to buy. Now it's worth around £20, which is roughly 52% increase. It was given a good investment classification, and if you go on Amazon, there's people selling it for up to £54. That sold 23,493 sets. And the other comparison is 76902, which retired in 2023. That was £18. Now it's worth around £20, which is an increase of roughly 10%. That was also given a good investment classification. And if you go on Amazon, people are selling it for up to £50. And that sold 17,106 sets. And that was the McLaren Elva. Now, I've got one of those somewhere, but it's not doing very well because I bought it from Lego and I wasn't very impressed with it because it's one of those that I paid full price for because I bought it from Lego, and it hasn't done very well. So it's been up and down in the last sort of year or so. Anyway, next one is 76920, the Ford Mustang Dark Horse, £20.99. The first comparison to that one is 75884, which is a 1968 Ford Mustang Fastback. That retired in 2019. That was £13 to buy. Now it's worth around £28. So that's an increase of around 113%. That was given a good investment classification. If you go on Amazon, they're selling it for up to £60, and that sold 9,207 sets. The other comparison is 75871, which retired in 2017, which was £13 as well. Now worth around £74, which is an increase of around 469%. That one on Amazon is being sold for up to £85, and that sold 4,456 sets. Next one is 76921, the Audi S1 e-tron Quattro, which is £20.99. The comparison for that one is 75872, the Audi R18 e-tron Quattro. That retired in 2018. That was £13 to buy. It's now worth around £49, which is an increase of roughly 276%. I couldn't find any on Amazon or Camel 3X, and they sold 3,584 sets. The next one is 76922, the BMW M4 GT3 and BMW M Hybrid V8, £44.99. The comparison for that one is 76905, which is the Ford GT Heritage and Bronco R. That retired in 2022. That was £45 to buy. Now it's worth around £67, which is an increase of around 49%. That was given a very good investment classification, and if you go on Amazon, there's people selling it for up to £189. And that sold 11,473 sets. And the next one is set 76903, and again I've forgotten to write the name down, so it'll be on the screen when it gets edited. It retired in 2023, which was £35 to buy. Now it's worth around £39, which is an increase of around 12%. And that was also given a very good investment classification. If you go on Amazon, they're selling it for up to £117. Sold 18,643 sets. Next one is 76923, the Lamborghini Lambo V12 Vision Gran Turismo, £20.99. That's a mouthful. The comparison for that one is, I picked it because it's a bit more out there of a normal car. There isn't another kind of concept car out there as Speed Champions, so I picked 76915, the Pagani Utopia, which is, it's not like a car you're going to see on the streets anywhere or like that kind of thing. It's an unusual car, so I thought it was the best comparison I could find. So that retired in 2024. That was £20 to buy. Now it's worth around £21, which is a roughly 4% increase. That was given a good investment classification, but if you look on Amazon, they're being sold for up to £42, and that sold 16,378 sets. And the last one is 76925, the Aston Martin Vantage safety car and AMR 23, £44.99. Comparison for that one is 76910. It's the Aston Martin Valkyrie AMR Pro Aston Martin Vantage GT3. God. That retired in 2023. It was £40 to buy. It's now worth around 35, which for a speed champion is unusual to be actual loss. It's roughly about 12% loss. But if you go on Amazon, they're selling it for up to £80, and it sold 16,068 sets. So that concludes the speed champions. What I'm going to do in my next video is the minifigures. I'm going to go through the series and sort of go through the ones that are kind of like the cheaper ones or the more expensive ones and that kind of thing, and the prices of the random bags and that kind of thing. So minifigures are my next video. So please like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you again next time. Thanks so much for watching. Bye bye.